girl joyfully runs to her mother. Her mother, worried, tells her not to run, otherwise she will fall. The girl hugs her mother and notices what kind of person in a dark raincoat. She asks her mother, "This man," but her mother interrupts her and tells her not to look at him. The villagers are whispering, "This man again. Body collector." The inhabitants called him the collector of corpses. This person walks into an item shop. The old salesman asks him, "Why did he come, the collector of corpses?" The people who are in the store are beginning to disperse. The body collector puts a sack on the table and says he wants to sell it. From the bag he pours out the claws of the animals. The old man examines the claws and says that he again brought some kind of garbage. He throws money on the table and says that a few bronze coins will be enough for him. And now let him take them and leave. The body collector says it's only 20% of the regular price. Why so little? The old man angrily calls him a jerk and asks if he thinks he has the right to say anything to him. He's just a pathetic corpse collector. In this world there is a danger that lies in wait for people at every turn. Monsters, however. There are those who hunt these monsters. These are adventurers. High-ranking adventurers mine expensive materials. They fight monsters every day. Defeating monsters, they increase their level. A slight difference in level makes a huge difference in strength. Level is the basis of this world. And in such a cruel world, the level of the corpse collector is 1. His name is Alka. He is a first-level adventurer. He walks through the market and stops in front of a bakery stand. He asks grandfather if he can have some bread. The old man recognized Alka and handed him the package. He said that he had left him some bread which he could not sell. Alka speaks as always, and he gave the coins to grandfather. He thinks it's a sin to complain. The old man asks him if it's time for him to quit his job as an adventurer. Maybe he can find another calling. Alka says he can't do it. After all, he is a notorious collector of corpses. No one will hire him. He had long wanted to become an adventurer. But when his dream came true, he learned about his curse, 0 experience. He didn't believe it at first. He had an unusual skill, or rather a curse. No matter how hard he tried to cut down the monsters, he still couldn't get experience. After defeating a bunch of monsters, he wondered if his level had really gone up, so he can't get stronger. Nevertheless, he did not give up. He stubbornly continued to kill monsters, but he still failed to gain experience. He believed that someday he would be able to improve his level, but all was in vain. Will he stay at level 1 forever? And then he lost all hope. He then began collecting materials from the corpses of the monsters defeated by the adventurers. Then he became a collector of corpses. Alka stands in the middle of the market and chews bread. He thinks that the materials from the first level monsters are very cheap. He needs to look for better monsters. Collecting change, he will not live long. Chewing his bread, he collided with some guy and fell. The guy stepped on his bread. Alka exclaimed that this was his last meal. The guy recognized Alka and said that this moron is a collector of corpses. This guy's name is Shark. A bunch of people giggle at him. Everyone in the city knows Alka as a corpse collector. Because of this disgusting nickname, he cannot find another job. He looks at his trampled piece of bread and thinks, why is all this happening to him? He just wanted to follow his dream. But as much as they despise him, he can't stop searching for corpses. If he stops, he will simply starve to death. Goblin Cave. Mostly low-level monsters live here. Alka hopes he can find something worthwhile. He walks through the tunnel and sniffs. What is that stench? Looks like it's pretty rotten. In front of him he saw the corpse of a large dragon. It was from him that there was a strong stench. Alka thinks it looks like this dragon was around level 200. He walks up to the nearly decomposed body of the dragon and says that now is not the time to think about it. He needs to collect materials. For sure he will earn good money. Alka pulls out a large meat sack from the dragon's belly and thinks that at least the rotten sack is left. It's an organ that certain monsters have. Usually the rotten pouch is not touched, because there is a very strong fetid smell inside. But Alka doesn't care about the smell. He makes a living rummaging through corpses. So don't scare him like that. He probes the organ and feels something inside. He stabs his sword and cuts open the sack. Inside the body and the truth was something. Alka took a closer look at the contents of the organ and saw that it was armor. Suddenly sparks came from the armor. Alka thinks it's all very bad. He can't handle something dangerous. Alka heard someone's voice and froze. A voice shouted to him, "Put them on." This voice must be coming from armor. Alka says it's definitely a dangerous item anyway. He turned around and rushed away. He needs to leave faster. But he saw before him a bunch of goblins. Alka looked at them in surprise and wondered where they came from. All goblins were level 1. Alka took out his sword. He was careless. Goblins with Alka have the same level, but he does not have good equipment. Goblins attack. Alka is about to be killed. The goblin knocked the sword out of his hands. Alka exclaimed, "No. Is he really going to die like this? In such a place? Is he really not going to achieve anything in life?" He remembers his last piece of bread. Suddenly, the voice tells him again to put on the armor. An ominous aura emanated from this armor. Alka thought he was no longer a tenant anyway. So be it. He's wearing armor. It's better than being killed by goblins. The voice says that the intention of the new carrier is confirmed. Registration of the new owner is completed. Activating quick clothing. Armor began to move. Dark sparks moved towards Alka. His shoes began to change. The goblins patiently waited and watched to see what would happen next. Armor of the Abyss completed. Alka approaches the goblins. A dark aura emanates from him. Alka asks the Armor of the Abyss, is it on his side? The armor says it will follow Alka's orders without question. The goblins attacked. Alka says he will believe the armor. The goblins were making terrifying grimaces. Alka takes out a new sword and says that unlike his sword, this blade is much better. He has the same level as the goblins. With a blade like that, he could cut through them with ease. He cuts the goblin into two halves, and light began to emerge from its upper half. This light entered Alka's chest. He wonders what is it. Goblins, despite the death of their relative, continue to advance. Alka sliced through their bodies in one fell swoop. He was surprised. His body is so light. Particles of light entered his chest again. That feeling again. He gets stronger and stronger, as if it wasn't his body at all. He is attacked by two goblins and Alka says that they are all finished. With one swift blow he cuts their bodies to pieces. He stopped and took a breath. He looked at his hand and said that he survived. With level 1 he was able to defeat 5 goblins. The goblin corpses emit light again, which goes into Alka's chest. He asks what is this strange light. His level rose several times. He looks at the windows of the armor system that have appeared and does not believe his eyes. Its level has been successfully upgraded. Owner level confirmed. The owner is currently level 6. Alka repeated in surprise. Level received. Level up. What does it mean? He can't gain experience points. The voice of the armor informs that thanks to the armor of the Abyss, Alka has the ability to use the level absorption skill. It is a skill that allows you to absorb the level of defeated enemies. Alka exclaimed what? The system window shows its status. His level is 6. Alka exclaimed, was he able to level up? That's how. He doesn't gain experience. He absorbs the levels of his enemies. He remembers the moments when the light entered his chest. Alka burst into tears at this. He wipes away his tears and says he can finally really level up. He quickly grabbed his sword and said that he understood it before, but it seems that he has become even faster. He runs through the tunnel fast, and now that he got 5 levels, he can get stronger. He caught his breath and looked at the dragon's corpse. He plugged his nose and said that the smell was just awful. No matter, thanks to this dragon, he was able to increase his level. The thought came to him. It turns out that if he defeats all the enemies in this cave, he will become even stronger. Surely the monsters wouldn't be able to hurt him thanks to the armor. If he uses it to the max and kills all the goblins. His thoughts were interrupted by a strange feeling. A huge shadow appeared behind him. Alka thinks, what is this feeling? There should be no strong goblins in this cave. He turned around and was very surprised. In front of him stood a huge goblin with a large cleaver in his hand. It was a level 35 goblin lord. Little goblins flitted about at his feet. Alka asked in bewilderment where the supreme goblin came from. He needs to run to the exit. Goblins climb on the dragon's body. Alka thought the goblins were attracted by the scent of the dragon. The voice of the armor warns that the enemy is level 35. It is recommended to retreat immediately. Alka knows this very well, but he can't escape. The goblin lord made an attack, but Alka barely managed to dodge. Before he knew it, the goblin launched another attack. Alka wanted to repel her with his sword, but the goblin threw him to the end of the tunnel. Cracks started from the impact on the ground. Alka got up and thought, what a monstrous power. Although he managed to level up, he is still very weak. Alka swears. Only he thinks that he was able to level up. Tears are flowing from his eyes and he thinks he is still so unlucky. Alka stands in the tunnel and leans against the wall. He caught his breath and said he barely escaped. And how can he get out of here now? The exit is guarded by the Goblin Lord's army. He looks around the tunnel and says that he is still too weak. Should he wait in a safe place until the goblins leave? Suddenly, a first-level goblin came running out of the darkness. He jumped to attack Alka. How this goblin irritates him. Alka grabbed his head and slammed him against the wall. The goblin slowly slid down the wall, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. Alka says that in this world, everything is decided by the level. Even such a goblin must understand the difference between them, just as he himself understands the difference with the Goblin Lord. A voice announces that the level is absorbed. Confirmation of the owner's level. The current level is the 7th. Alka suddenly remembered, for sure, he can now level up. If he keeps absorbing levels, then he will be able to defeat even the Goblin Lord. Before he could not kill anyone, but now everything has changed. Now he must kill to survive. A few moments passed and Alka had already begun to kill the small goblins at full speed. Goblins died one by one. One goblin fell to the ground and looked at his executioner with fear. Alka immediately cut him, and his relative into small pieces. Blood dripped from his sword. Light began to emanate from the defeated goblins. Alka says that only the strongest win in this world. Only those with a high level can survive. The weak will always obey the strong. He knows this from his own experience. Alka is walking through the tunnel. His level has increased to 15. He notices a fork in the tunnel. The voice of the armor advises him to explore the side caves. Alka peeks into one aisle and asks if there is something there. He goes a little further and sees a bunch of treasures in front of him. Apparently, goblins stole all these treasures from people. Even if all this was obtained by the first level goblins, ordinary people cannot handle them. Alka says let's see if there's anything he can use. His eye caught the box. He opened it and saw inside the flask. The voice says it's supposed to be a recovery potion. Alka takes a closer look at the flask and says it really is a potion. He will take them to battle. The armor informs that they have a special space for potions. Alka asks, space for potions. A small vault appeared on his belt. Now the potions are stored here. He puts the flask in one of the holes and says that it is a useful little thing. Thank you. Alka would like to take some gold, but it will interfere with his battle. The main goal now is to return to the city alive. He has already become stronger. If he can get out of here, then he can get rich by selling materials from monsters. He clenches his hand into a fist and speaks perfectly. Then go ahead. Someone's lowing is heard behind the boxes. Alka turned around abruptly and ran towards the source of the sound. Behind the boxes he saw a bound girl. Alka thinks that means goblins and people are kidnapped. The girl hums pleadingly. Alka immediately rushes to her. Now he will help her. He removed the ropes from her and said he was lucky he noticed her. The girl happily thanks him. Her name is Mel and she is from Rakaru village. The girl asks what is his name. After a short silence, he tells her his name. The girl immediately changed her face. That is he the one? Alka asks if she knows the nickname Body Collector. The girl apologizes and says that she heard about him from rumors. However, it is completely different from those rumors. Alka turned around in surprise and asked what. The girl with a smile says that he saved her life. In her opinion, he does not look like a collector of corpses at all. The girl breaks into a happy smile and says that Alka is a hero for her. Alka has always wanted to be an adventurer that saves people from danger. Mil picks up the bag from the ground. Alka tells her to follow him. He takes her to the village. Mil did not hear and asked what he said. Alka will answer that nothing. He thinks he's letting in quite a bit, but he's happy. They walk along the tunnel and Alka stops abruptly. He tells Mil to hide behind rocks for a while. The girl obeyed him. Alka senses the goblins coming, and there are quite a few of them. A bunch of goblins came out of the darkness of the tunnel. They are all clearly aggressive. Alka counted about 20 goblins. They are all level 1, and he has 15. They better prepare well, because soon they will become his level. The goblins attacked. Alka kills several goblins at once with one blow. He raises his sword and prepares to strike. His eyes sparkle with his own power. Blood splatter paints the walls and the ground. Goblin levels flow to Alka. Level absorbed. Alka absorbs a few more levels at once. Another goblin attacks him. Alka says that thanks to the level absorption, he attacks faster. He dodges the goblin's attack and spots more goblins behind him. He jumps up and attacks with a downward kick. His level keeps going up. Alka happily throws the goblin into the air, grabs it with his hand and cuts it down. The other goblins became even more embittered. They stretch out their hands to him, but their attempts are in vain. Alka quickly approaches them. He unleashed a series of blows on them. Bloody fireworks went up in the air. Confirmation of the owner's level. The current level is 35. Mil, looking out from behind the stones, asks if she can go out already. Alka says not yet. The girl turned around in horror. Alka says that he shed so much blood of his kind, and at last he has come. The Goblin Lord came out to meet him. He looked terrifying. Alka said the Goblin Lord had finally arrived. The huge goblin growled. But Alka is now level 35 and he will be able to fight with him on equal terms. He is no longer the weakling who ran away from him. The Goblin Lord raised his weapon. Alka said don't think he can beat him so easily. The goblin did not have time to react. Alka cut his side. Small goblins appeared. Alka glanced at them quickly and counted them. A total of 10 goblins. As long as the Goblin Lord was alive. He didn't want to be distracted by trifles. He yells at Mil to throw the knives at him. Mil takes the knives out of the pouch and tosses them to him. All the knives fell out of their sheaths. Mil apologized for this. Alka says that everything is in order and deftly catches 2 knives in his hands. With graceful movements, he threw his knives and pierced several goblins at once. More knives fall from above. Alka quickly catches the knife and throws it at the next target. The knife pierced 2 goblins at once. Alka deftly catches all the knives and dodges the attacks of the goblins along the way. He collects knives and takes them between his fingers. He says they were unlucky. They shouldn't have interfered with him. Their desire to help only exacerbated the situation for their master. Alka immediately threw all the knives at the small goblins. They all immediately fell dead. Alka has absorbed their levels. His level has increased to 45. He notices the movement of a huge goblin to the side and deflects it with his sword. He's now level 45, so he's much stronger than him. But the Goblin Lord continues to harass him. Alka thinks what? He has a higher level than the goblin. Where does this pressure come from? Alka recoils from the blow and curses. The armor warns that this monster has a bracelet that increases performance in battle. Alka noticed a bracelet on the goblin's hand. This item increased the stats. The bracelet was in the shape of a skeleton wrist. Usually, it is not easy to level up, so in order to become even stronger, adventurers equip stat-boosting items. However, he didn't think monsters could equip items either. In that case, The purpose is clear to him. He needs to destroy the bracelet. The goblin struck the ground where Alka had recently been. He jumped back and said it didn't look like it would be easy. He closes his eyes for a moment and says it looks like he's going to have to give it his all. He uses all his powers. He went on the attack and the sword collided with the cleaver of the goblin lord. But Alka resists the pressure and continues to make an effort to get closer to the goblin. The goblin lord stamped his foot in annoyance and pushed Alka aside. Alka landed on the ground and said it's not over yet. He looked back and noticed the knives in the corpses of the little goblins. He took several knives and threw them at the lord, but he repulsed his knives with his cleaver. Alka throws knives at him again. The goblin beats off the knives and Alka, taking advantage of this, got very close to him. The goblin shields himself from him with his weapon at the last moment. Alka screams, "Get it." The goblin looks at him in bewilderment. Alka immediately darted to him behind his back and asked, hadn't he already spoken? From the beginning, his goal was the bracelet. The goblin lord's bracelet shatters into small pieces. Alka lands softly on one knee and begins to rise to his feet. He says no more surprises. He turns to the goblin lord and says that then, at the entrance to the dungeon, he saw an old, weak Alka. But now, he is many times stronger than him. Now it is he who must flee in fear, if he can, of course. The goblin lord stepped back a little. Alka noticed this and raised his sword. He attacked him and the goblin tried to parry his attack. But Alka's blow was so strong that he was thrown straight into the wall. The goblin lord coughed up blood. Alka, surrounded by an ominous aura, asks him what's the matter. Is he afraid of his power? Not smart, because now his life is at stake. The goblin wanted to repel Alka's attack but could not withstand the blow and dropped his weapon and it stuck to the ground. Alka remembers how he was humiliated and says if he overcomes him, he will forever get rid of his weakness. The unarmed goblin lord raises his fist to strike, and at the same moment Alka cuts his chest. This is the end. He defeated the goblin lord and thanks to him, he will become even stronger. And he thanks him. Goblin levels flow to Alka. Voice notifies of the increase in the level of the owner. Level increased to 80. Alka tells Mill that she can now come out of hiding. Mill comes closer and examines the corpse of a huge goblin. She is surprised that Alka was able to take down the goblin lord. He is now the strongest adventurer in this place. Alka asks, the strongest. He bends over the head of the lord and cuts out his tooth. It will be a good trophy. Obtain material, Great Fang of the goblin lord. Alka smiles and says that he didn't think the day would come when he would get such a rare material. Mill holds out her hand to him and tells him not to worry, she will carry the materials. She puts the goblin lord's blade, a cursed bone, and other valuable items in her bag. Alka thanks her for helping out with the materials. Mill tells him not to worry, he saved her life. It's not difficult for her. What should they do with the corpse now? Alka has already collected all the good stuff. He thought he no longer needed to hide. He could just return to the village. But if he left the goblins as they were, they could again kidnap the girls from the village. He asks Mill if she will stay a little longer with him. Mill in bewilderment asks what. She doesn't mind, but where will they go? Alka turns his head towards her and says that he won't allow any more kidnappings. He will destroy all the goblins in this cave. Some time has passed. He says it's time to go back. They walk through the village with sacks stuffed with materials on their backs. Alka's level has increased to 100. Walking down the street, he thinks that he left this village. He was level 1. And now he is already at level 100. Rosewell. In addition, at level 100, he will be able to defeat most of the monsters in the area. He pressed his fist to his chest and said out loud that he had finally become a real adventurer. Mill sighing asks what did he say. She had never heard of 3-digit level adventurers. He is clearly no longer a rookie, but the strongest adventurer in the village. Alka says hesitantly that this is true. He wonders. He has never seen adventurers with such a high level before. He tells Mill that he can absorb the levels of defeated enemies. Let her not worry. He too was surprised when he first saw it. Mill replies with a smile that with such strength, he can become even stronger. He will keep his fingers crossed for him. Someone interrupted the conversation. It was Jarg and his friends. He greets the corpse collector. Alka gave him a cold look and said his name. Jarg asks what kind of armor is this. Since he can't level up, did he decide to rely on equipment? His friends laughed. Jarg goes on to say that Alka will still be trash even if he wears beautiful armor. He still remains a first-level weakling. No equipment will help him with such a difference in levels. Alka approached Jarg with a wide step and brought a knife blade to his throat. He asks you to do him a favor, let him shut up. Silver steel sparkles at the throat of Jarg. He asks how dare he. Freak. He kicks it and Alka bounces off. Jarg tells him not to dare to be arrogant. Corpse collector. He raised his sword and wanted to attack him. In a few moments, his sword was already in the air. Jarg said in bewilderment, how could this be so? This cannot be. His sword clattered into the ground. Jarg's friends are ready to attack Alka. He turned to them and asked if they wanted to be next. They shuddered and retreated. Jarg is dumbfounded by Alka's power. He's level 20. How could he lose to a first tier 1? Alka asks, level 20. Yes, he is weak. He is several times weaker than him. One of Jarg's friends checks the ARG level in the system window and advises Jarg to do the same. Jarg checks his level and looks at the system window in surprise. He does not believe his eyes. 100 level. This must be a joke. He looks up and asks, but if that's true, what kind of monster is Alka? Alka sighs wearily and says, first a collector of corpses. Now a monster, he is the most ordinary adventurer. But Jarg and his cronies vanished. They run away from Alka in fear. Alka is surprised by their running speed. Mel says Alka's trek has really changed. She is very happy for him. She runs a little ahead and